So next up, talking about the competitive events this weekend. I didn't have a slide for the Swedish one. I only found out about 5 minutes before we recorded, but there's a Manchester event going on. 170 people. Top 16. I think it was top 16.
170?
170. Top 16. And it's only a one-day event. They're not doing a second day. Top 8 get the Emphas Nest mat, or maybe top 16. I don't remember. I have it in a DM if you guys want to talk.
That is a massive tournament. Is that the?
Yeah.
I feel like
That's
one of
bigger
the
than the
biggest
Gen Con
tournaments.
events.
Right. I mean,
I
they
think
were
170 might be.
Yeah, these UK events are really big. So top 8 get the Emphas Nest mat.
Hold on, I'm cracking the stream right now.
Top
I know it won't
16
be
get
on
an aspect pin badge, which are like, I have some here, but like you get the aspect pins. They're like not acrylic. What are they called? Enamel pins of all the aspects. And then they have signed Grogu promos by the designers for the top 4. And one thing that's cool about this event is that it's using that limitless.gg app that we used for Gen Con, and we already know the spread. There are 30 Sabines in the field out of 170, 21 Boba Fetts, 19 Han Solo 2s, 18 Kiras, 16 Bosks, and this is wild, 10 Vaders, 9 Palps, 8 Han 1, 7 Rey, and then it gets to, 5 Tarkin, 5 Gar, and those. And then Yakko posted right before we went on, so this isn't totally clean, but you can see the full breakdown. 26 of those 30 Sabines are ECL, 16 of the, I think 21 Bobas are yellow. 14 Han
One is
Blues,
playing on stream right now.
11 ECL Kiras, and 5 30-point green Kiras.
The kitchen table.
Yep,
kitchen table. Although we'll talk about it, but I've seen a list that is not the kitchen table.
Oh no, we're not talking about that.
I know, no, not on the pod, but that's why you got to be a kitchen table boy, because there's some lists out there I would not recommend.
For sure. So so anything surprising? I want to go back to the little bit cleaner with all the leaders. Anything surprising here that you guys want to shout out?
So
Definitely the Vaders.
I think the surprising thing is that outside of the Vaders and Emperors, that's not really that surprising. This is now falling in line with our top 4 predictions. And I do think, like, we went to Gen Con and you saw all, like, remember, like, we walked around and it was like, palp, 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 palp. There's just, like, a feeling that, like, the big villain leader does pop up as, like, just an entity at every tournament, where this time it's Vader, and it's also palp right after him. Of just the energy behind that deck. You want to play bigger. You want to play, like, the Imperial War Machine, essentially. And it's like you're choosing one of these larger villain leaders without so much of, like, the nuance of, like, Akira or something like that. So that sort of feels like it's just going to be a presence. But then it's, it's one of those decks that oftentimes gets hated out by Sabine. But, the top 4, if I had to do a pie chart predicting the top 4.
Yeah, so this is interesting because we are gonna I don't know if you guys can, but me and Maddie at least will come on and record a quick maybe 5 to 10 minute to splice into the pod about the results because we'll have them for tomorrow before the pod goes live.
Right.
So what are your predictions for the top 8 based on this, or for top 4? Like, what prediction do you want to make? Anything is fair game. I'll give you a second to think. There's something.
Here, let me go. I think it's going to be like 2 or 3 Sabines, two yellow Bobas, like 1 Palp, and 1 or 2 Kiras. How many did that make?
2, close enough. I think what's interesting to me is, like, when I talk about what weekend is it, like, this was a Sabine heavily played weekend. So, like, looking at this, did we want to play Boba Fett into this 30 Sabines, or did we want to play Kira to beat the Boba Fetts? Those numbers are pretty close in terms of, like, what's getting played. To me, this is like, all right, a couple Sabines convert, maybe 1 or 2 Boba Fett convert, maybe 1 or 2 Kira convert, and then there's like 1 or 2 wild cards, and then, like,
I can see a Han.
Yep, for sure, it could be like 1 or 2 Han as well. Like, we could just get 2 of each, right? Do you, like, in that top 8? Like, I'd want to be Boba Fett because I would feel good against the Sabines and I would feel good against the Hans and hope to dodge the Kiras. So, like, is this a weekend where it's going to be Boba Fett Kira in the final and Kira takes it home because there's a good Kira player in the cut? Or, you know, they might not even have a cut. It might just all be one day Swiss because I know that
Oh
there's no
yeah.
day two. Either
Right.
way, this is, you know, like as Justin said, this is like the classic meta prediction. Like, this is it. It's the big four and then a bunch of other stuff.
I guess one thing I would say is that it's probably the amount of Kira that should be played, but it's not necessarily anticipated amount because people haven't always necessarily gravitated to that
Mhm.
sort of color spike and leader. So like I guess what I'll be interested to look at is how many of those Kiras actually do top eight because I could see a world if they're piloted by good players where it's like four of the top eight is Kira because if you're comfortable with your Sabine matchup as Kira, and which you can get to, and then you're beating up on Boba, and you've got some real nuance towards your villain mirrors with like, you know, putting a shield on to
Avenger, Snoke.
Yep.
Avenger and stuff like that, and Snoke, you're actually looking really good against kind of everything. So it'll be interesting to see if that, and we saw Wood Woo at Gen Con kind of, you know, getting into that confidence level with his deck. It'd be interesting to see if others are able to adapt to it because it is a really hard deck to play.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to
Yeah.
see like how many people were thinking Kira and then like, oh, maybe the read is like too much Kira. I want to play Sabine instead because I want to beat the Kiras, and then that's why the Sabine number is so high. But like, it's interesting to see like how to navigate that space.
Yeah.
Steve, only two
And
of these rays are blue. Any thoughts on that?
once you unmute yourself,
Oh, Steve's still muted. Is that why he hasn't been talking this whole time?
I don't know.
No, I think it's just chilling.
But yeah.
Sorry, I had to get the dog situated. Um, yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that there's not more Blu-rays. I mean, I told everybody pre-Gen Con it's a good deck, but nobody took me seriously. I do think if someone was playing it that was actually better than me or knew what they were doing, would have had a little bit more success. Um, yeah, I mean, if I look at that top four, I'd want to be playing Blu-ray. You know, I think it's got a really good matchup for both Kira, Sabine, and the new Han. Boba Fett can be tough at times, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. I think Kira, to go back to what Justin said, you know, I played one game the other day with Kira, and throughout the course of the game, I was counting like double digits on the number of misplays I had, and like it's a hard deck to play, and if you're there could be 18 people playing it, but if no one's up to that level of like you guys or Woo or somebody like that, they're not going to get there. Because I mean, I'll tell you this: if you gave me Kira into a fresh tournament tomorrow, even if I had good matchups, I probably wouldn't get there because it's just so nuanced and difficult to play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Kira can be tough. If you get like all Bobas, you can cruise. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I will be curious to see like where the kind of like cream rises and who hits into who, and there's gonna be a lot of cool takeaways from this.
Yeah, when last I checked, it was only through a couple of rounds, but the Kylos were doing well early, so I'm interested to see
Oh
if any
yeah,
of the Kylos
there's a
hang on.
there's a cool green one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd
and all
in
the
this field
all the
though.
lists are public, so we'll have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I would like to be Kira 30 into this meta.
Cool. If you're seeing this on YouTube standalone, check out our podcast for even more content on this video.
Yeah.
So this had 170 people, and the top 8 was pretty spicy. Do you have the top 8 right in front of you? Like,
I
how many
have
each?
the top 8. It is, although real quick, is 170 the most people in a tournament? That is a lot.
I don't know. The other UK event also had a lot.
Oh, true.
But I'm not sure. If it's not, it's close.
Yeah. 3 Boba Fett, 2 Palp, 1 Han Solo worth the risk, 1 Ray more than a scavenger, a yellow Ray, very interesting, and 1 Sabine.
Yep,
So
and
I
then
think
the Bobas were 1 green, 2 yellow.
okay, yep, 1 green, 2 yellow.
And we're going to cover the top 8 lists here and talk about their runs. So this Sabine list has no Poe. It has General Dodonna, which is generally pretty good in the mirror, but Poe's also good. He faced 4 Sabines and beat all 4.
He was the Mirror Slayer with no Poe.
Lost to Ray. Have to imagine that's the yellow Ray that was that's also in the top 8, and lost to a Boba Fett.
Yeah. So what's interesting about like it's funny. Like me and Justin went through like these conversations. I mean, I'm not the Sabine boy, but just like talking about Poe and like there is a world where like you really only want to be ECLing wreckers. So like if you did move away from Poe, that frees up some slots. And it's interesting that losing that huge value card is still good in the mirror, probably for some of those lines those guys identified. But like, you can steal things with the heroic resolve damage, and you don't lose your biggest power play, right? So
Yeah,
that's
it's
pretty
just
interesting.
wild that Sabines are so heavy on the Darksaber, and maybe people weren't. Like, the thing is, deck lists were open, so if you're playing this Sabine and you see that your opponent isn't playing Poe, like, they really don't have any way to get rid of the Darksaber. So, like, it seems
Right.
it would be an auto slam. Um,
Yeah, you just don't have to
maybe
worry.
even on, like, whatever you already have out on 3. Um, so, yeah, it's just a little wild that a Polis Sabine with no way to get rid of Darksaber stomped 4 of them when
Maybe
like
because you have Donna, you have a way to keep her hostage. Like your pumped up guy is gonna. Although you could probably do that with wing leader anyway. But I bet there's like a way that you can maneuver to be a little more sleek. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, this isn't a criticism, it's just
Oh yeah,
surprising. So
I'm just trying to find the line off the top
yeah,
of my head.
yeah, same.
But it's
But
it's
it's
cool.
got
I mean, I hope.
heroic
Yeah.
resolve, which we were talking about in the Discord this week, just like how it's kind of gone away.
Yep.
um
Yeah, I like it. It's interesting. I mean,
yeah.
I think Dodonna's still a good value
Oh,
play.
for sure. Justin's been on Dodonna a little bit, and like as something that can help beat Boba Yellow as well. The other thing interesting to note is that there were 30 Sabines. It was the most played list, and only one converted, and it snuck in
Yeah.
8th on tiebreakers because there was one
Yeah,
6-2 that got bounced.
that is really. I mean, I think when we identified it, like this would be the week that like you would be loving playing Boba.
Yeah, I mean there were so
I actually,
many. Yeah,
I actually would have liked to be on Kira 30, even though it didn't sneak into the top 8. And the ninth was an ECL. One of our boys from the Discord, um, Mike Henson, came in 30th at his first big tournament, going X and 3 on a 30-point Kira. I think one card off for me. So I wanted to shout him out because he did wreck some Sabines today. And like that was like, I think he went 3-0 or something against it. So
yeah, nice.
he had a good angle there.
Yeah, I mean with 50 of the 170 being Sabine or Boba, like it would make sense that Kira's did well, but Kira is a hard deck to pilot, and with 0 converting. Right, 0 converted.
Yeah, ninth is the
That's
highest
wild. With
one.
that meta, we would have expected some. So I'm
Yep.
sure people will be heavily down on Kira, which only puts it in a prime position. I'll be interested to see what we think about will be good for next weekend. In 7th place is a Palp Blue here, 30-point Palp Blue. And it seems pretty standard, nothing
Hmm.
out like crazy that I can see. But it does have main deck Traitoresses and main deck Entrenched, which aren't the most commonly played cards.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, like, I'm not the biggest Traitorous guy, so I'm just trying to see where it's good.
It
Like,
seems like a
obviously,
UK thing based on the list. This won't be the
yeah.
first Traitorous that the only Traitors we talk about today.
I mean, there are a lot of good 3-drops in Boba Yellow still. If you're worried about Lurking Tie, you kind of have an avenue there. But I think that the real thing is like we identified Boba, I mean not Boba, sorry, Palp to be something that could be good as the meta goes later. Would not have expected it here with so much Sabine, but let's see, how many did he beat? No, not okay. So here he just farmed pretty much the matchups that you want to, which can completely happen. So like even though that this might not have been which it was the Palp week, 2 of them got in, but like, even though this isn't like the ideal Palp meta, you can still get the matchups you want in sale. So sometimes you just decide like, okay, I'm going to toss this match and hopefully I only play it once, and he
Yeah,
did.
that's what happened. We talk about that all the time. Like, if you can be the Palp that only has to face Sabine 1 or 0 times, you're going to be great. And then, like, playing 2 Boba and playing 2 Kira. This is, like, one of the few decks that's, like, actually pretty good into Kira
Yep.
in various builds. So, and then split games with Han and beat a Grand Inquisitor. I mean, that's the dream run for Palp, especially Blue
Yeah.
Palp. I love the Scanning Officer. Yeah, I mean, I love Palp. I have the most games played uh, as Palp. Like, I play so much Palp, but it's not as successful for me. Yeah, I can't wait to use that. All right. And
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is like, even when you allocate that risk and get paid off, like I know we'll probably get into predictions, but I think Palp could easily win, just win this tournament with the top 8, how it's going to align.
Yeah, only
Yeah,
one
so like,
Sabine and 3 Bobas to pick off. So and a green Palp. So this one I had to do not as an image because the image generator was broken for the restore to arc. But this is a yellow 30-point Ray that was on stream. So if you can check out the stream, we'll have the stream linked in the description of this video. And running the choppers out there. Chopper, Cartel Turncoat, pretty wild low to the ground Ray that I guess is trying to find value in the Mandalorian. But it's also got 3 jetpacks. It's got main deck confiscates. It is a wild list.
It is a brew. I mean, I definitely want to go back and watch the matchups. This was a tournament, Saturday. I'm watching the kid chasing him around. I was refreshing the limit list, which was fun. But I want to go back and watch the matchups because I am curious how this player navigated 3 Sabines in the last 4 rounds with the fact that Chopper, like you can get early ECL'd and Chopper loses kind of some of that value. And so like, especially with like 2 Ezra and 2 Kanan. So again, not criticisms, just trying to find where it works. I love a deck that runs C3PO and has a lot of ways to proc it. That was like my big thing early in the set, and that he's leaning into that. So probably some good card advantage generated between C3PO R2.
And he might be doing things like underdropping and like making sure he gets those low cost guys and starts buffing them up and then slams the Mandalorian so that they're double shielded. I would also say that like confiscate against all the Sabines probably went a long way. You just get that, you hold it, you wait for them to tap out for the Darksaber. It's a huge blowout. Like that could be just enough damage saving on what they spend for it to be enough to win those matchups.
And you can undercost, right? So you can play, even if you want to play like a jetpack, like you can still with your actions, like a lot of times decks have to worry about like just passing and getting no value. He can still take really cheap actions and save the confiscate where other decks can't do that, right? Like, so say if I'm Kira and I want to hold the takedown, he could just play a 4-drop and pass or something. He can kind of blow me out a little more than you can against the Ray because the Ray can pump and undercost. And
right,
still
but here we can play a 1-drop, buff it, attack with something. Play another card. Yeah, confiscate.
It's funny that Steve mentioned Yellow Ray like in the pod, and then but this is cool because I've tried Yellow Ray. I have not made it work, but I'm gonna sleeve this up. And
I'm excited to try it. And Village Protector's in the sideboard, so I know I watched him beat a Sabine, and he on stream, and he brought those in and essentially just
I'm telling you, man,
bounced off and attacked, and he beat a couple of Bobas too, which is interesting.
The Village people are Value Town. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, here's our sub, Sam Short, Obsidian.
Shout out to Sam Short.
Chair Obscuro, who shouted us out on stream, which was great. He did the submarine move. He lost round 1 to Palp, and then he won 7 in a row. He played 3 Palps today. That's a guy that is after my own heart. I feel like I always played Palp. He played a Gar, he played a Bo, he played a Boba, and he played a Kira.
I mean, going 2-1 against Palp shows that he can game. I think that's a nuanced matchup, and one that if you take the right strategic approach and I don't want to tip the cap and give that away just in case. But like he found the way to beat that deck, and he maneuvered it, which is really cool.
Yeah, and this looks like, I don't know all the nuances of all the Blue Hans. I mainly just play the one that you gave me, but I think this looks pretty close to what Frank played at Gen Con because of the 2 Pillage, the 2 Mace.
Yeah,
I don't know if he had entrenched in that, but possibly. Either way, like there's a lot of modifications you can make.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like even though my list looks different, what's cool about this color palette, and I say it in the video I did, and like we always talk about it in the actual thread, which is what he shouted out that collaborative process in the threads. That's why they're so good. Is like we all have our own takes, but like we come together and people kind of pull what they want, and that's exactly what he did here.
Yeah, and you make modifications based on what you expect too. And
Exactly.
yeah, this is a great deck. It's one of the most popular. He's the only one that converted with it. So shout out to him. 6, 7, and 1 run, and I'll be rooting for him tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to be playing against the list we're looking at next, Green Palp. And I'm going to try and get some games against the Green Palp and see if I can help in any way. I know he beat 3 Palps, or he lost to 1 Palp, but beat 2.
Yeah.
But still, any help that we can give, we'd love to give to him.
Oh yeah.
So here's this Green Palp, pretty spicy with the Cobb Bants. I love all the officials. I've been wanting to mess with Cobb Bants. He hasn't quite made my list yet, but he's got escort skiffs. He's got enterprising lackeys, which I love. He's got bounty hunter quarry and traitorous, and then he's got legal authority in the sideboard. So he's like very high on those upgrades in this list. He's only got 1 resupply, which like I think of all the things in this list, that's the wildest call that I see. Even though he's got things like mercenary gunship, which I guess is like it's good for Cobb Vanth. You need some like low drops in there, but 3 resupply when you really need to be ramping with Palp seems pretty crazy. Not
1
crazy,
resupply,
but it's wild.
Yeah. 1 seems a little wild, but he's really leaning into like. It seems like he's leaning more into like, okay, I'm playing to the board.
Yeah,
and
trading early, attacking early.
I'm ramping after. Like his resupply is probably like on the 7th resource turn to like get to 8. You know what I mean? Like he's more not that I would necessarily. I think I'd at least play 2 personally, because one of the biggest things is he has him in the sideboard. Okay, that's a split. So he's just indexed actually more towards an aggro meta. That's fine.
Yeah, I still think I would want like it over traitorous in the aggro meta, but I think all the other stuff is spicy, and like I've never tried bounty hunters quarry and Palp, but
it's good.
It's cool.
I mean, he can go bounty hunter's quarry into Cobb, and then from there, so like he's straight value town.
Yep, and like you could just run sentinels out there with phase 2 Emperor's Royal Guard in the Gamorrean retainer. Like you can really just pump sentinels out.
And that's like one of the biggest ways that I found to combat like Sabines, even if they have Spec Force Soldier, is like you're just gonna have so many sentinels that you're gonna always be able to chump and then get a nice barrage off. And just back to Bounty Hunter's Quarry, like I think that card is so underplayed. Like I love seeing it here. I think it's such a smart choice because it's just insane value, even if it's on a non-unique. And like so he's really indexed towards that, which I like.
Yeah, and he beat 2 Sabines, which is, a testament to this early game that he's put together. It's so early focused, which is something that most Palps don't do. So, I'll be interested to try a version like this and really just it's nice sometimes to get you like to look at the lists that do well and be like, okay, these are things that like I've been interested in trying but haven't really found time to pull the trigger, but this worked, so let me just try it and see if some of these, even though like I'm not a huge fan of like some of the 2-ofs and 1-ofs, it's good to try a list like this so that you can see how it's working and if some of these things are actually the value town that they seem.
Yeah, broaden your horizons. Yeah, love it. It's cool.
All right, so here's one of 2 Boba Yellows that we're going to take a look at, and this one does not have lurking. This is the one that has hot shot. I mean, these are pretty standard lists. This is a smaller bounty hunter package. It only has 1 Zuckuss. It's more leaning on the lackeys and the cantina bouncers through the late game bounty hunter package, but everything else is pretty standard at this point. It's like what's flavoring you going to do? He's got the Viper probe droids, he's got Boba Fett's army, he's got a little bit of everything, right? And he's got the Gamos on the board, Bazine on the board. Don't want to say this is standard, but like it's yellow's so good, it has all the good cards. I don't know what much to say about it other than like it's got all the good stuff. No wonder it did well.
I like Boba's armor, and I like the at least 1 shoot first. I think people are like forgetting that card exists, and it was so
it's huge for me. I love it.
Yeah, so
and
I like that.
He beat 2 Kiras, which is pretty insane. Like that's a tough matchup, and so for him to go 2-0 against Kira opponents is pretty great.
Yeah, that's not an easy matchup for him.
All right, and here's the other one. And this one, the thing to note about this one is that he faced 3 yellow Boba mirrors and won all 3, and then lost in the round 8 to the green Boba that went 8-0. And I think like what I see when I see his list is the reason why it did so well in the mirror is like having the full 4 Lamzakis package.
Yep.
Like that's such a good trump in the mirror. Like,
That was your sideboard strategy.
yep, that was my sideboard strategy. Shout out Richard Douglas who beat me with it on day one of Gen Con. But he's got all the goods here. He's got 1 Cartel Spacer. He's got 3 Hot Shot Blaster. He's got the main deck Lurking Ties, which I really like and have been flirting with. The Bodies are fully in the board. And he's got more Relentless. He's got all the Relentless Pursuits. He's got 2 in the board. He's got my Final Showdown, one of my favorite cards. Yeah, I think this is another solid list. But again, like I don't think that there's a wrong way to do Boba Yellow right now.
Yeah, it's very versatile, and you can just kind of like hedge where you want. He went for the mirror. He hit the mirrors. He crushed.
Yeah, and A also good in those mirrors when you can rebuy
Yeah.
things like Cantina Bouncer.
I like that.
All right, the 8-0 list. I'm going to go full Sports Center here and go, young people, do not try this at home. These UK Boba Green players insist on playing 54 cards or whatever. This is a 54-card list, and it has Patrolling V-Wing. And I will let you take a math course and think about why you would want to add something into your deck above the minimum that draws you cards. That doesn't work the way you think it does, but I can't say anything. Dude went 8-0. He's obviously a beast. He played on stream, so you can catch some of his games. But he won 4 Boba Fett matches, so he played the yellow Boba 4 times. And for whatever, I don't know if it's the Boba Fett's armor X3. I don't know if it's the 6-7 drops that really trumps that matchup for him. But when I've been testing yellow Boba into green, like I've been happy on the yellow side. And this dude, Joshua Freeman Birch, he's a beast. He won all 4, and I think that's sick. And he also beat Akira, and he beat Tuhan worth the risks. And I think like this is very similar to the Gen Con Boba Green in that it has the 3 Boba Fett's armor. It has the 6-7 drops. It has the main deck reinforcement walkers. I think the spiciest thing is Cobb Vanth. Right? Like that's even more spicy than the Patrolling V-Wing, but also gives you great, like the V-Wing gives you an awesome card to pull with Cobb. So I think it's really cool.
It would be hard for me to cut down because if you get rid of the V-Wing, then you probably don't want the Cobb. But yeah, Joshua reminds me of like a early NASCAR or Formula One driver. He's got some talent, but his car is not so efficient. He hasn't gotten on that team yet. He's running the 54 cards.
But whatever, he's winning.
But he's got skills, baby, and that means a lot at a big tournament. I think this game, if you are the better pilot, you get so many match points, percentage points, and a chance to win that you can really bridge the gap there. I love Boba's armor. I think that card's insane. I've been trying to also kind of see a way to play green Boba, and I think this going late style in the meta is really interesting that he could farm the yellow Bobas and Han. And we've been hearing that Han's worth the risk. The blue-red deck has a little bit of trouble with green Boba, and I can definitely see why.
Yeah, and he's got a high density of units here. Like the waylays are in the board, like he doesn't have he's not looking for the 3-cost bounce effect to set off Boba units big flip turn. So he's definitely like counting to 8 in a different way, like maybe with a McClunky and a 5-drop and then either armor or jetpack or a Cloud Rider or Bazine or V-Wing. So definitely a lot of spicy stuff. Very cool list, very well played, and we'll see if he can take it down tomorrow.
Well, yeah.